do you say to that person who says, okay, but my what I'm drawn to and everything isn't what my target client would be drawn to. There's a very strong disconnect between the two.
So that's a really good question, and I think something that got missed in the last few years of business, this world of we were teaching a lot of stuff, and I don't know that it was 100% accurate, because there was a lot of you are your brand, and there is an element of that, but I think we missed the point, what you just said, that the point of a brand is to attract the client that will pay you. Right. Otherwise, you have this really beautiful...
Amen.
Right? Okay.
It's not a business.
Yeah. Right. It's like your alter ego with more money or something. I don't know. Okay. So how do you reconcile those things? I think if your ideal client is not attracted to what your aesthetic, and that could be very real. So two things. One is, I'm going to back up before that question. One is maybe they are very similar to you. They just have a bigger budget. So for instance, Amber Housley, actually, when she was doing weddings, she used to talk about this, that she was like, my ideal bride is very much like her, but with a way bigger budget. So she's going to try to think like they think. So for the person where the ideal client is not anything like them, you just have to begin to ask the questions well, where do they shop? What do they have in their closet? Where do they spend their time on social media? And just be there. You have to ask those questions about your ideal client so that you can meet them where they are. What newsletters do they subscribe to? What emails are they getting in their inbox? And you got to be like those emails.
Right. You got to study them. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's a great question. I think just a few markers or filters. If you're not attracting your ideal client, if you are consistently attracting wrong clients for you, assess what is not working. My fourth one is to define your brand. So to physically define it. And you could do that in the form of a style guide. So this is where it gets real practical. And I say to do that, literally define your colors. So have a color printout with the CMYK, the RGB, and the web color, even the Pantone color if you're printing that way, because the colors that you use, even in that small example, should be consistent across the board. And this is just a tip for getting things done quickly, is that if you are a designer or you're using any type of Photoshop or Illustrator or any of those things, having those colors, a color palette will actually save you time, because you're not having to recreate a navy that you love every single time, or the perfect gray. So defining your brand, so your logo, your submarks, your monograms, anything that you're going to be using should be defined, meaning saved in a folder that you use consistently. You're not having to recreate any part of that every single time you need to use it. Your colors, your typefaces. So I would even go as far as to say, this is what headers should look like. You could do a Google search for brand style guide, and some really great resources will pop up for what those should look like. But it'll just give you a measure for what you're going to be presenting to the world consistently should look like. So I talk about language. Ashley Brooke Designs, I heard her speak recently on social media. She's just a master at that. And she talked about, they actually have a list of words in their company that they use frequently. And it's as if she's created this ideal client. And it's similar to her, but not exactly her. And it's all the words that she would use. So it's the words that make this ideal client feel comfortable when she reads them, and feel at home, and feel like she knows Ashley Brooke. And it's just,
that.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
That's brilliant.
Right?
Yeah.
So what do they actually talk like? If my ideal client is a businesswoman, she's probably not walking around saying my bestie or things like that. But Ashley Brooke's client, the people who are shopping at her shop, they love that. Mm-hmm. So just really defining,
No, I was just going to say, so if for those people who are watching, they're I don't know what words they use. I think that's where you go back to where does your client shop? And you should be subscribed to all those newsletters. Like you should have a subscription to every newsletter that you believe your target client would be connecting with, and start looking for common words and phrases within the copy that these companies are writing. And you might be able to start curating a list that way. If you're not instantly thinking, and like if you don't have a list coming to your mind, that's where I would suggest to go. So.
And even magazines. You could even say what kind of magazines do they read and subscribe to those magazines and physically like read the magazine. Like what type of language are they using? It sounds daunting. Once you start like thinking through it, you'll start to see some connectors.
Make it like a fun date for yourself. Like go like to Starbucks, get your favorite drink, have your laptop and some magazines, or maybe a Barnes and Noble, which here they always have Starbucks inside of them. Yeah. But we are Seattle. But yeah, like sit down and make it like a fun little project, and then maybe it won't feel as daunting.
Yeah. Which leads to my next point, which is consistency. Having some just defined parameters around what you're putting out there will not only help you increase your systems and your workflow, everything will just be smoother on your end, but it will also really, for the bigger point why I'm bringing that up, is that your client will see the same you on all platforms, everywhere that they are interacting with you, any touch points they have. It's consistency leads to professionalism across all points, and professionalism will help your ideal client to trust you. And when they trust you, they will give you their money. Like they will say, I am willing to invest in you.
I love that. And I love one thing that I want to touch on that you said that I thought was so good, and I want people to really like to see this, is that you also, because you know your brand so well, because you've identified that, you know exactly who you want to attract, and you're not trying to be everyone's brand designer. You have a very specific target client, and that's so important, because then you can, I believe, also charge what you're truly worth and what you should be valued at, because you're not trying to be everybody's. You're trying to be that perfect fit for certain ones. So I loved that. I think for me, I've seen huge changes in my bottom line, in our profits and our income goals that we've set as we have strengthened our brand. And I think it comes back to two things. I think number one, we go out and we do all these marketing efforts. Well, all of those marketing efforts should eventually result in them landing on our websites. Now, if your website is not something that you are truly proud of, if Ashley and I go to your website right now, if the first words you're going to say to us are, "Oh my gosh, I'm kind of embarrassed," there's a really big problem. Okay, so there's your quick sign to tell you that you need to strengthen this brand, because what your goal is to get out there into the marketplace, to say, "Hi, I'm here and I'd love for you to get to know me," and to get them to come back to your website, because for the majority of us, our websites are our virtual storefronts. So you're going to bring them back there, and they're going to make an assumption instantly. I mean, within less than a half of a second, we know, based on statistics and research that people do, that within less than a half of a second, they have made an assumption about your brand, of how much they feel you're worth, what they think you do, if they like you, if they trust you, all of these things. So that having that strong brand has made a world of difference. In some of my trainings, I show my very first website to our current one, and I let people use words to say what they think of the initial brand. And I can tell you, the words that are shared, not one of those words is what I ever want my company or my brand associated with, ever. I get a dental office a lot. Obviously, we were way off the mark. So, and when I show our newest brand, the words that are used over and over are words that I want my brand and my business to be associated with. And that was finally doing it. Really, it came down to doing what Ashley said with those first steps, with truly identifying my own style, and then truly identifying my target client, were what really, I feel like, were like my tipping point for making that difference into getting that really strong brand. And And I've seen it also in the opportunities that I've gotten too. Mm-hmm. Because of having a really strong brand and a really clear message, the opportunities, and I think you would probably be able to say the same thing, the opportunities that have come have been worth their weight in gold, for those investments in having somebody really help me identify my brand. So that's probably what I would say.
Yeah, that's yeah. I think that was great. That was a great ending point.
Okay. All right. Any final thoughts? Should we wrap up?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. That was awesome.
We could go on and on, I think is really. So, Ashley, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Leah.
It's always so much fun catching up with you. So, thank you everyone who tuned in. I almost forgot. So, will you just really quickly share?
So I have a checklist that is super helpful that will go through. It literally just maps out lots of touch points that you might not have ever thought of before. Like, do you have a professional email signature that fits your brand? Just some like very basic things that maybe you haven't thought of before. So I'm going to send that along. And then as you were talking, I was thinking too, I have another one that I think is like a brand assessment, kind of just like kind of what you were saying. Like if I went to your website right now, what would I think that they can kind of do themselves? So I'm going to see if I still have that. And if I have it, I'll send that along too, because I think that would be helpful also. And it kind of goes along with the 5 characteristics that I talked about. So you'd be able to easily work those together.
That sounds awesome. Okay, perfect. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll just want to go to the link for the actual direct blog post of this, and then that's where you'll be able to access these wonderful gifts that Ashley has for us. So thank you so much, Ashley. Thanks, everybody. Go have an amazing day. Go do amazing things. You've got this.